Balakrishnan Shankar is currently the Associate Dean of Engineering at Amrita University, Kerala. He graduated from the University of Texas at Austin. Am I right, sir? With PhD in material science and was working in the semiconductor industry at Silicon Valley. His research interests are in material science and, more importantly, the spiritual science. So these are the terms we are toying with and discussing: the spiritual science, the science of spirituality, the scientific spirituality. So again, opened now to Dr. Balakrishnan Shankar.
Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langete girim yatkrapa jamaham vande paramananda madhavam. I have an extremely difficult task. Is being the last speaker on after 2 days and after such a wonderful presentation. It was so wonderful that I forgot that I had to speak next. And so now I find that I have to talk to you about a very difficult topic, quantum mechanics and consciousness. And of either of them, I am not an expert. I am just a student in this vast field. And all of you are sitting here before me with years of experience and wisdom. And so forgive me if it sounds like I am preaching to the choir. I am going to be telling you things that you already know. But let us hope that in the telling, a new light can be thrown on this. So once again, I want to start by saying that this is one of the best conferences that I have attended in my life. And I am deeply grateful to Verma ji and Jayan ji and all the organizers of this wonderful conference. I did not know I was attending it till last week, when all of a sudden there was a change of plan and I was asked to attend. So, but I'm so happy to be here. It has been an extremely rewarding experience. I dedicate this entire talk to my Guru, Amma, Sri Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, in whose ashram I live and in whose university I teach and I work. This is what she says, and I want to base my talk on that. The external is matter and internal is consciousness. Without consciousness, matter remains unknown. However, when you transcend all differences, you see everything as pervaded by pure consciousness. So I like this particular quote extremely because there are 3 stages in this. The first sentence, the external is matter and internal is consciousness, separates mind and consciousness and matter as completely distinct entities. The observer has nothing to do with the observed. They are different entities. There is objective reality, and there is classical mechanics, classical physics. The next one, without consciousness, however, matter remains unknown. And now comes in the observer. All of a sudden, to know matter, to know anything, to make a measurement, you need an observer. You need consciousness right there. And what is the role of the observer in this entire drama of physics? Is he completely neutral, or is it a participatory reality? Is it an objective reality or a participatory reality? That is what quantum mechanics is asking. Basically, is my observation affecting the results of the experiment that I conduct? Basically, is the result of the experiment conditioned by the fact that I am conducting it? In which case, there is no objective reality. I am somehow in a self-participatory, maybe even self-determining universe. I don't know. The third sentence is what I think is the most important sentence, which science has not yet explored. But however, the sages of India have explored it, and they come and say this conclusion. Amma says the same thing. When you transcend all differences, you see everything permeated by the same consciousness. I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanism of transcending differences also, and why the process of transcending differences is also a science. That is primarily belonging to Vedanta and Indian spiritual tradition. The first sentence primarily belonged to our classical mechanics picture. But then there are scientists on both sides. There are people who have done research on both sides. There are people who have based their lives on both sides and come up with astonishing conclusions. I am going to show you some of these people. Here. The bottom you see, of course, Albert Einstein. Next to him you see Niels Bohr. And next to him you see Schrödinger. These three perhaps were some of the founding fathers of modern physics in their own way. Albert Einstein, of course, with relativity and the general theory of relativity and space-time continuum, he removed the distinct difference between space and time and viewed it as one dimension. Niels Bohr, in many ways, is one of the fathers of quantum mechanics. And interestingly, Einstein and Bohr Einstein could not agree with many of the conclusions that Bohr was talking about. In fact, quantum mechanics was so surprising, so completely different, so startling in its predictions, that even Albert Einstein could not accept completely. In fact, he said, God does not play dice with the world. Subtle is the Lord, but malicious he is not. God does not play dice with the world. Because when they talked about probabilities, all of a sudden in classical mechanics, you have a particle here, it is moving such a velocity. I can determine its position, I can determine its velocity. And based upon its position and velocity, and based upon simple classical mechanics equations, F equals ma, I can predict what it will be 100 years down the road. But quantum mechanics completely shattered all that. Even the point of a particle is under question. Even the point of what do you mean by particle is under question. And if I am observing it, the deterministic picture is under question. So Einstein said, Einstein said, God does not play dice with the world. He could not agree with the idea of probabilities. The idea that it is most probably, it's a set of outcomes and your observation causes one of the outcomes to happen. And then the third one, and there are the third Solvay Congress, if you see, it's fantastic disputes between Einstein and Niels Bohr. In the morning, Einstein used to come and give a thought experiment to Bohr to disprove quantum mechanics. And through the day, Bohr will be thinking about it. And in the evening, he will come and disprove Einstein. Sometimes he used Einstein's own theory of relativity to prove Einstein wrong. And Einstein was really impressed by that. So much against his own tendencies, Einstein had to admit that quantum mechanics was kind of true. Quantum mechanics is absolutely true in many of the things that it says. For example, without that we would not be having, your cell phones or your computers or space travel. The third is Schrödinger, and Schrödinger I deliberately put him there because he's the Schrödinger wave equation, and he is the one, just as F is equal to ma is the empirical Newton's second law, Schrödinger's equations, pretty much the basic working tool of quantum mechanics. But Schrödinger ended up becoming a great student of the Upanishads. He ended up talking about consciousness, and I'm going to show you one of his quotes. I'll try to be as fast as possible because I know that I am between you and the cultural program and lunch and dinner, and all of us are tired. On the top, I have put three other scientists' photographs. I deliberately call them scientists. They were sages. Of course, in the middle you have the great Shankara. I won't say he is the creator, but he is the most important philosopher in the Advaita Vedanta tradition. Shankara. He has written commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, on the Brahma Sutras, on the Upanishads, and the principal Upanishads are those on which he has written commentaries upon. So we have more than 100 Upanishads, but we consider 10 of them the main. That's because Shankara has written commentary on them. He is the father of Advaita Vedanta, and his results are startlingly different from common sense. Just like quantum mechanics results are startlingly different from common sense. But to the left and to the right are two of my favorite Indian scientists. or rishis, you can call them either way. The left, of course, is Swami Vivekananda, and the right is the famous Ramana Maharshi. Swami Vivekananda, you all know about Swami Vivekananda. He was a scientist in many ways. By scientist, what do I mean? Not just a person who needs to have a formal education in science or works in the lab. That's not what I mean. One who has a scientific temper, one who follows scientific methods of questioning, one who establishes through reproducibility and repeatability of the experiment if something is true or false, by scientific method. Swami Vivekananda was through and through a scientist. He was a great researcher. In fact, when he was a kid and he used to attend lectures on spiritual topics, at the end of it he used to go and ask the speaker, because the speaker would talk about God and all those things. He used to ask, "Sir, have you seen God?" And the speaker would be very embarrassed and he would say, "No." See, bottom line is this: you have spent 2 hours talking about God. Have you seen God? No. Oh, okay, thank you. So that's the thing. That was his point. Bottom line: have you seen? No. Okay. And he went on and on. He even went to Devendranath Tagore, the famous Devendranath Tagore, and asked the same question after his lecture: have you seen God? Devendranath Tagore, instead of answering the question, he said, "You have the eyes of a yogi, you need to meditate." But Swami Vivekananda, young Naren, did not like that answer. Till somebody told him of a crazy saint in Dakshineshwar called Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and said he is apparently experiencing states beyond the mind. There was a poem in William Hasty's poem called Excursions, which his English professor was teaching him. It talks about states beyond the mind. And so the teacher said, there is a saint in the nearby Dakshineshwar. He's supposed to be experiencing states beyond the mind. Why don't you go and check it out? And at that time, young Naren went and talked to and met Sri Ramakrishna. I'm not going to give you the whole story, of course, but he asked the same question on his second visit. The first time when young Naren went to Sri Ramakrishna started crying and said, "Why, I have been waiting for you for such a long time," and came and hugged him and all that. And Naren thought, this man is nuts. What do you mean? What does he mean by saying he's been waiting for me for such a long time? The second time he went, Naren, but he knew that Sri Ramakrishna was talking the truth. There was something absolutely sincere about this person. So he asked Sri Ramakrishna the question, the second time, his famous question: "Sir, have you seen God?" That was the question. Sri Ramakrishna, remember, was a young priest in Dakshineshwar, uneducated priest, sitting on the floor, and with simple, absolute confidence answered, "Yes, I have seen him. I see him even now, just as I am seeing you. Only think more intensely, and I can make you see him." That question, that answer changed Indian history. Otherwise we would not have had a Swami Vivekananda. Simple. Yes, I have seen him. I see him even now, just as I am seeing you. Only think more intensely. If you do research in that sentence, you realize that Sri Ramakrishna is not talking about seeing a person or a particular form or a particular... He's talking about something else. He's talking about maybe a state of being. I don't know. I'm not going to try to tell you what exactly Sri Ramakrishna meant. I'm not going to be that arrogant. But he's probably talking about a state of being. Just, I am seeing him even now, just as I am seeing you. Only think more intensely. And that made Naren come again and again and again. But for 6 years he fought with Sri Ramakrishna. He used to tease Sri Ramakrishna. He used to cajole him, question him, test him. And finally he also experienced these states beyond the mind. In fact, when he first experienced that, he thought he was dying and he lost a body. And he called his brother disciple and said, "Where is my body? I can't find it." The brother disciple thought that this man is dying. And he went running to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna said, "Let him be in that state. He has teased me long enough for it." And so after that, the rest is history. Sri Ramakrishna passed away. Swami Vivekananda went to the US and he inspired so many scientists. Nikola Tesla, the inventor of AC, was inspired by Sri Ramakrishna. By Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda lost his credentials when he went to the US. He had an ID card, address, he lost everything. In New York, one professor at Cornell told him, "Swami, asking you for your credentials is like asking the sun for its right to shine." because this man was so brilliant. And then he wrote another letter and then he went to the Parliament of Religions, and the rest is history. And there is wonderful works by Swami Vivekananda connecting science and spirituality, especially in his books Raja Yoga and the theory of Akasha and all that. And Jnana Yoga, where he talks about some of the concepts about the illusion of time and space, some of the concepts that I'm going to be showing you. But Swami Vivekananda is a scientist and a sage simultaneously. The third picture on the right is one of India's greatest sages, a fantastic Advaita Vedantin, Ramana Maharshi. As a young boy of 16, he was in his uncle's house in Madurai, when all of a sudden he felt that he was dying. He laid himself on the ground and said, "So this body is now dying. We will take it to the funeral pyre and burn it. But I still feel I, with as much force as before. Therefore, I am not this body." All of a sudden, the idea of consciousness as separate from this vehicle, which is this body, gripped his mind, and he says his mind sunk into pure being. After which his entire behavior changed, and most of you know the story. He left home and he went to the famous temple town of Arunachala, and where he went down into a basement cellar and sat there near a Shivlingam. God knows for how long. It's still there, I've seen it. Now they've renovated it, it's very beautiful. But when he went, apparently it was full of termites and ants and insects and scorpions, and he sat there naked, forgetful of his body. And these started eating him. And he was sunk in the self, immersed in consciousness, not knowing what was happening to his body. Until one lady came and discovered, this faint, she used to come down once in a while to put some flowers on the Shivlingam. Suddenly she came down and found a faint outline of this boy, got a shock, and then went out, and then Ramana Maharshi was brought out. The interesting thing about Ramana Maharshi is, he experienced some states but he never read about this. He never read a single spiritual book in his life. He stumbled across something and he went ahead with it. Then later on, an attendant called Payani Swami came to take care of this man. And Payani Swami brought many books with him. And brought some books of Ribu Gita and the Bhagavad Gita and Vedanta and all that. And then when Ramana Maharshi, when the boy read Payani Swami's books, suddenly he realized that the books were talking about what he had experienced. And that is what I want to draw your attention to. He was supposed to have realized Brahman without knowing, without even having read the word Brahman. He experienced states which the books were talking about, but he had never read any of this before. Only then he realized, others have also experienced this. But why I am emphasizing this point is, you may have never read about gravity. You may not know that G is 9.8 meters per second square. But if you drop a ball, it will fall down and G will be 9.8 meters per second square, isn't it? So what happens? What is this? There is validity for the truth of the phenomenon. There is a phenomenon on discovery, has some properties. It has been documented in the past. It has been rediscovered by these people again and again. So later on, when some people came and asked him, Bhagavan, is your philosophy the same as Shankara's? He became famous. Ramana Maharshi was very famous. He passed away in 1950. Is your philosophy the same as Shankara's? To which Ramana Maharshi answered, I speak from my experience. They say Shankara said the same thing. You see, there's a big difference between these two statements. I speak from my experience. They say Shankara said the same thing. Just like in Einstein, when the general theory of relativity was proved, and you all know that they were waiting for the total solar eclipse, and they found that light bends under gravity, and they sent him a telegram saying he's correct. Einstein was teaching a class, and the secretary came running to him and said, it seems you're correct. Einstein said, I knew it all along. And he went back to his class. So, like that, I already knew this. I'm going from my experience. But now what I want to tell you is that Vedanta is a science. It describes states that can be experienced. It is reproducible. What Shankara said 5,000 years ago, and what Swami Vivekananda experienced, what Ramana Maharshi experienced in 1950, etc., etc. It's reproducible, repeatable, and documented. Let's go a little bit through physics, and would like to quickly go through physics and then show you the parallels. So, how physics started approximating to this whole problem, you all know this, but I'm going to go a little bit through that. With the famous double slit experiment. I've shown you only one slit here, but there is a reason. It all started with, Gadreji said, I'll throw some light on it, and exactly, I'm starting with light. When I'm here showing an electron, it's, all of you know the double slit experiment. I have a beam of light. This thing I can't see. Anyway, I have a beam of light, and if I open a slit, the beam of light goes through the slit and forms an illumination on the screen. But the moment I use two slits, I will see an interference pattern. I won't see a single point on the screen. What happens is something like this. I take a stone and I put it in the lake. I throw a stone into a pool, right? You will see ripples. I take a second stone and throw it in the lake. At that point, this was not a problem at all. But unfortunately, this happens with electrons too. Everybody thought the electron is a particle, a small particle. And they opened the slit and they send the electron through, and it made a ping. Maybe you can have a screen like a Geiger counter and it registers a ping. So it made a ping. Okay. You send an electron beam through two slits, and all of a sudden they found an interference pattern. And they were shocked. How does this happen? The electron's behaving like a wave. First it was behaving like a particle, now it's behaving like a wave. When I have two slits, the electron beam goes, interferes with itself and forms interference pattern. Then they said, no, something is wrong here. And so they sent one electron. One electron. They sent only. That's why I say single electron path there in that. You all know this, but it bears repetition. They send only one electron. But when you send only one electron, the same thing happens. You send one electron through the single partition and you will get one ping. You send one electron through two slits, you immediately get an interference pattern, which means that the single particle electron went through both the slits simultaneously, interfered with itself and caused an interference pattern. It's like saying that I came into this room through this door and that door simultaneously. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But yet that's exactly what happens at a subatomic level. The electron does come through both these slits simultaneously, interferes with itself and appears as a screen. So that really confused people, because then they say, okay, the electron also acts like a wave. So this idea of the particle is here, a particle is there, is now under question. Because a wave can be in two points at the same time. A particle can't. But an electron is both a particle and a wave, which means now I no longer know whether a particle is here or a particle is there, or is there some doubt about it. The only reason that I cannot walk through both these doors simultaneously is compared to Planck's constant, my dimensions are huge. Planck's constant is 6.634, 10 power minus 34 joules per degree Kelvin. It's very, very, very small. But when you do with electrons, with subatomic particles, you will find here and there are no longer true. But that's not the whole thing. That's not the mystery. The central mystery is not that. The central mystery is, I will come to this later. The central mystery is what Richard Feynman is the Nobel laureate in Nobel physics in quantum electrodynamics. He asks this question. So I have one thing open, I repeat, I send a beam of electrons, I send one electron. I have one slit open, I get a ping. I get two slits open, I get an interference pattern. I close a second slit, again I get a pain. Okay? I get only one spot. Richard Feynman asks, that's okay. Forget about the fact that the electron is coming through both the simultaneously. That's not the central mystery of quantum mechanics. The central mystery of quantum mechanics is how the hell does the electron know that you have opened the other slit? That's the central mystery of quantum mechanics. How on earth would the electron tailor itself just because you opened another slit there? So they said, no, something is wrong here. No, this is not true. Just because I open another slit, why should the electron come through both at the same time? What I'm going to do, I'm going to put a particle detector. And I'm going to see what exactly this electron is doing. So what they did, they kept, remember this, if I have only one slit open, electron will come, 1 point of illumination. I keep two slits open, I get an interference pattern. Now what they did, they kept both the slits open, but they put a particle detector which will detect the electron. I'm not going to go into the details of the experimental thing, I'm just giving you the idea. They put a particle detector. The moment they put a particle detector, this is a particle detector, the man there is a particle detector. The moment they put a particle detector, both the slits are open, it goes back to being a particle. So I have one slit open, particle. Two slits open, wave. Now I look, back to particle, even with two slits open. The simple act of observation, has caused the electron to go back to behaving like a particle. How is that possible? That, according to, is the observer, so that's the question, is the observer affecting the experiment? That's the question. This is Richard Feynman, Nobel laureate in physics, quantum electrodynamics, one of the most brilliant minds in physics, Feynman space-time diagrams. And he says, this is the central mystery of quantum mechanics. The central mystery of quantum mechanics. How is the observer affecting the experiment? The observer affects the experiment. If the observer affects the experiment, my dear friends, I have news for you. There is no objective reality. So now all of a sudden I don't know if G is 9.8 because it is 9.8 or because I am looking at it. I don't know, for example, if this is black because it is black or because I am looking at it. All of a sudden the question is there objective reality apart from me? That's what physics is all about, isn't it? Physics is all about analyzing this world outside, assuming it is independent of me. Now all of a sudden, it's not independent of me. Then how do I know? It's like a dog chasing its own tail. How would I know that the rules that I am discovering are real or false? Or am I influencing it? How do I know? Is there objective? At this point, many physicists left physics. At this point, many people just said this is too crazy. And this is something even Einstein could not swallow. But that is truth. Experiment, I'll show you in the next one. Something even more weird. I will be showing you. Even more weird stuff. I'll show you. So question is, object, and this is very simple. I'll give you a simple argument. And then I'll finish very fast. I'll give you a simple argument. For example, an atom is mostly empty space. Okay? They say they have a nucleus and have electrons orbiting around the nucleus. The electron is so much smaller than the nucleus. Atom is mostly empty space. Okay? Which means that my hand, made up of atoms, is mostly empty space. Okay? This hand also is mostly empty space. Then what is it that I am feeling? Why don't they pass through each other? What does you mean by a surface? This surface is mostly empty space. This hand is mostly empty space. What do I feel? What I feel actually is Pauli's exclusion principle. What I am feeling is electrostatic repulsion between the electrons. That force gives me the perception of a surface. If I take an electron microscope and look at my palm, it doesn't look like this. It won't look like this at all. There is no surface. It's not an even surface. You'll see huge, you'll see discontinuous atoms. What you are perceiving is a force, which your senses translate as a surface. Do you understand? Already what I am trying to tell you is, this world that we see is not what we think it is. It is already a function of the senses you use to see it. Already objective reality is in question. Supposing you had X-ray vision, instead of using visible spectrum of light to see me, supposing you had X-ray vision, what would you see? You would see skull and bones and you will run away. Supposing you use infrared, I look some different, isn't it? Supposing you use ultraviolet rays, I look different. So what is my real form? There is no such thing. It depends upon your perception. That is understandable enough. But at this level, it becomes weird. Because when you say that just because you detect, just because you put a particle detector, your observation collapses the wave function. And I'm not going to talk to you about Schrödinger's cat and all those things, but the central mystery, Feynman says, of quantum mechanics is this. How on earth does the electron know that you have opened the other slit? How come the observer is affecting the experiment? If the observer affects the experiment, there is no objective reality. There is only one other system of thought that says that there is no objective reality, and that is Vedanta. No other system of thought is bold enough to proclaim that there is no objective reality. You may be thinking this man is nuts, he's saying this world is unreal. But yeah, it is. At least it is not. Reality is not what we think it is. Whatever is out there, filtered through the senses and the mind, is what we see. And I have no idea at a subatomic level what the observer is doing. And I will show you two more weird experiments. What they did next is, they saw that the observer, the moment you put the observer there, it went back to behaving like a particle. And you know what they did next? And now you're really going to say, no, this is nonsense. They put the observer there after the electrons move through the slits. Do you understand? The electrons move through the slits. We put an observer, it goes back to becoming the particle. Then they put an observer after a time delay, which means that the electron would have already gone through the slits. And then they saw, again it went back to becoming a particle, which means your observation determined what the electron did in the past. That's called Wheeler's delayed choice experiment, is there. So, I'm coming there. Before I go there, I want to talk about the EPR paradox. There is another interesting phenomenon in quantum mechanics called the EPR paradox, Einstein, Podolsky, Rosen paradox. Einstein, Podolsky and Rosen were three scientists, and they thought about this thought experiment as an argument against quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics says that if you have two entangled particles, for example, I create two particles at a time, somehow entangled. In quantum mechanical terms, there's something called entanglement. If you create two entangled particles, then the properties of one affects the properties of another. So, for example, if this is spin up, this should be spin down. Okay? If it's spin up, this should be spin down. So Einstein said, no, that's not possible, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two entangled particles and I am going to move it 1,000,000 miles away. I'm going to put one particle here and the other particle maybe in Andromeda Nebula, in another galaxy, millions of miles away. Then, if I adjust the spin on one, according to quantum mechanics, the other one should immediately adjust itself opposite. If this is spin up, this is spin down. So you put this down, this is up. You understand? So Einstein said that is not possible. Because then what's going to happen is, according to quantum mechanics, this will be superluminal transfer of information, which means information is transmitted from this particle to that particle faster than light, instantaneously. Einstein said it's not possible. But with all due respect to Einstein, it is true. It has been demonstrated with photons. It has been demonstrated with, and recently, 2 weeks ago, no, not 2 weeks, 2 months ago, it was demonstrated with atoms in an Australian university. It is absolutely true. And there is an IISc physicist who was working in Austria with who was in this photon experiment. And he told me, Bala, the only explanation I have for this is that space is an illusion. All of a sudden, quantum mechanics is saying that this is entangled. The whole thing is entangled. And if you go back to the Big Bang Theory, the entire universe is entangled. This whole universe, every particle, you, me, the chair, and everybody else, and everything else is entangled. You can't touch one without touching the other. And all of a sudden, you're looking at Advaita Vedanta. All of a sudden, you're looking at something that is very, very similar to what Vedanta is saying about the oneness of the universe. So that's the illusion of space. Now I'm going to show you something else equally weird, which is going to talk to you about the illusion of time. And I'll come back to Wheeler's delayed choice experiment in just a second. I want to show you this. Don't be frightened, but this is a complicated experiment done through a series of mirrors and beam splitters just 15 years ago, published. And just bear with me for 2 minutes, and then, see, I have a laser beam. I pass this laser, this is an experiment done by Kim et al., scientists in Japan and in Europe. I pass it through a linear crystal. What it does, it entangles two particles together. Then I pass it through what is called a Glenn-Thompson prism, which splits. So the red beams, you see the red lines? The red lines is a path of one photon. The blue lines is a path of another photon. So the top line goes through a lens and hits detector D0. The other line scatters in another prism, goes through a beam splitter, goes to a mirror, reflects back and hits D1. Another one reflects from BSA, which is another beam splitter, and hits D3. I hope with this pointer, I can't get the laser beam. But if I can have a cordless, then. Okay. So coming back. So once again, I have these two photons. They get entangled, the red and the blue. The red hits the detector on the top. The lower red goes again, refracts from the prism and hits some other mirrors. It goes to D1. And some goes to D4, which is another beam goes to D4. And another beam comes to D3. D1, D3, D2, D4 are detectors, particle detectors. And now comes the weird thing. So, yes. Yeah, I'll show you this. So what happens is, supposing I'm going through this photon and I get an illumination here. I get an illumination here in D0. I automatically know that it came from the top slit. Okay? If I get a ping in D0, I automatically know that the photon came from the top slit. Whereas, if I come here, and this red goes here, reflects from the mirror, comes through this beam splitter, hits D1. It can also go back there. If it does that, I don't know the path. I don't know if it came from A or it came from B. I don't know. You understand? This setup, the whole setup is such a way that on two detectors, on D0 and D3, I know exactly which slit it came from. On D1 and D4, I will not know. It could have come through either of these two paths reflecting through. And the weird thing is, whenever I make a measurement on when I know which slit, when I'm looking at it, it becomes a particle. When I don't know, it's a wave. And so whenever I make a measurement on where I know the path, I register it as a particle. Whenever I make a measurement where I don't know the path, it's a wave. And there is no difference between these two paths because both are identical. The only difference between these two complicated set of paths is, in one case, I know the path, I know which slit it came through. In another case, I don't know which slit. It's just like looking at it. The simple act of knowing seems to have affected it. That is weird one. Weirdness number two is this is what I didn't tell you there. The problem is the path number 2 is arranged such a way it takes 8 nanoseconds more to go to D3 than it does to D0. What it means is, whatever I register on D0 is perfectly in tune with whatever I register here. If it's a wave here, it's a wave there. It's a particle here, it's a particle there. Which means 2 things. One, the electron that came to D0 knew that you are going to look at D3 8 seconds later, 8 nanoseconds later. Or you can reverse it. You can say that your measurement of D3 affected the path of D0, which was finished 8 nanoseconds before. So your measurement affects the outcome even in the past. So Wheeler went on to say this. By the way, these are all Nobel laureates talking. Okay, it's not John Wheeler is another Nobel laureate. He goes on to say, why worry about 8 nanoseconds? This actually Wheeler came first and the experiment came later, but I am putting it the other way because what I showed you is a demonstration of what Wheeler thought of. Wheeler says, why do you want to have an 8 nanosecond path difference? You have a million light years path difference. It still works. So what Wheeler says is, there is a distant quasar, it's emitting light, and in the center there is a gravitational mass. Somehow there is a gravitational lens. It reflects both those things and comes to the earth. You have 2 observers. So what Wheeler says is, depending on which observer you choose, you are going to determine which path this photon took. But the photon left that galaxy a million years ago. And Wheeler goes on to say that this is a self-referencing universe, and maybe our belief in the Big Bang, our attempts to find what the Big Bang is, caused the Big Bang to happen a million years in the past. Now you may think this man is nuts. Yes, I am. But then this whole thing is true. Because there is only one other science, I would say, a system of thought which talks about the illusion of space, the illusion of time, and the observer's effect on reality, and that is Vedanta. There's no other science, no other system of thought that says this. So, I quickly go over there. In Yoga Vasishta, in Yoga Vasishta comes, I think, the first ever recorded instance of relativity of time. Because we have a story. Yoga Vasishta is apparently a dialogue between sage Vasishta and Sri Rama. It's a huge book, but in there you have a story of Leelavati, a lady who is a disciple of goddess Saraswati. And Saraswati appears to her. Her husband is dead, and she is crying to Saraswati. She has a boon that Saraswati will appear whenever she wants. So Saraswati appears to her and talks about her dead husband. And suddenly shows her her husband. And the husband is a king and she is the queen in another palace, which was happening in a previous life. And then they go on to another life, in which again the husband is somebody else and the wife is somebody else in some other location. And all this stuff is happening simultaneously in that hut. Basically the story goes like the past, present and future are happening in Leelavati's point of view simultaneously at the same point of time and space. So she asks, where is this palace, where is this hut, where is everything located? Here. Then they ask, so which one is true? That's the next question. Oh goddess, tell me, which one is true? You know Saraswati's answer? None of them. None of them. They are perceptions. You see, King Janaka had a dream. He was a great king. He had a dream that he was a beggar. He dreamt that he was a beggar. And he was suffering for food. He did not know, oh my God, he was on the streets, he didn't get food to eat. Then he gets up and finds himself in a palace. He's a king and was surrounded by all the luxuries, etc., etc. So he went to the court and asked this question. He said, last night I dreamt that I was a beggar. And now I wake up and find that I am a king. Please tell me, am I a king who dreamt that he was a beggar? Or am I that beggar currently dreaming that I am a king? You see? And Ashtavakra replies, O king, you are neither. Your nature is consciousness. You are neither the king nor the beggar. These are perceptions happening in consciousness. Observation causes things to happen. So that's the first illusion of time written about, relativity of time written about in our scriptures. There's an illusion of time also in another book called Triple Rahasya. The story is too long. It consists of a yogi who takes a man into a mountain. It's a very beautiful story. He says, I have created a whole universe inside the mountain, you come and see. And the fellow comes into the mountain, leaves his body and takes him into the mountain. And inside the hollow of the mountain, he has created an illusion of space and galaxies and this and that. And then he takes him on a tour and then takes him out. And then he says, oops, I forgot to tell you. One day here inside the mountain is 10,000 years outside. So when you go back, all your relatives, everything is all dead. And he comes out and he faints and falls and the story goes on. But that's the other the difference in time scales between experiences, the illusion of time and space is talked about in these Indian texts. So finally the question boils down to, who is this observer? When you say observer, who do you mean by that? Is it the instrument? Is it my hand? Is it the mind? Who is this observer? Who am I? The question boils down to, who am I? So quantum mechanics has led straight into this question, who am I? See, we say I am, for example, you say I am Bala. 20 years ago I was only this big. Now I am this big. 20 years ago you asked me who I am, I say I am Bala. Now my entire body has changed. I don't say I am Bala plus 3 feet. I don't say that. My entire body has changed. As Mr. Katre said, all the skin cells are replaced every 2 months, 3 months. Please rub your hands. Please rub your hands. Thank you. You just lost maybe 1 million skin cells. They must have fallen out. Do you see any loss in individuality? Do you feel suddenly I am Mr. So-and-so, but now I am Mr. So-and-so minus a few million cells? By extrapolation, the I has remained unchanging. Yesterday, I was terrified that I had to give you a talk, and today I am happy that it's getting over. Yesterday I said I am Bala, today also I am saying Bala. I don't say, I don't feel I am Bala minus sorrow plus happiness. 20 years ago I did not know anything in quantum mechanics. Now I am trying to. I don't say I am Bala plus knowledge of quantum mechanics. Mind has changed, the body has changed, the intellect has changed, but the I, like a cinema screen on which images move, but the cinema screen is not affected. The I has remained a constant. For example, if I see somebody, I saw Dr. Sushil walking, and after that I see Dr. Sushil walking out. I'm Dr. Shukla, sorry. It's a fantastic talk yesterday, and I was wondering how am I going to sit in front of him and talk. But I saw Dr. Shukla walked in, and then after that I see him walk out. What does it mean? It means I am in the room before he came in. It also means I am in the room after he went out. To record a change, I need an unchanging witness. Yes? Yes or no? Yes. So my 3-foot body came, 4-foot body has gone. Quantum mechanics has gone. Bhopal trip has come, Bhopal trip has gone. Sorrow has come, sorrow has gone. Happiness has come, happiness has gone. I remain constant, unchanging. But in deep sleep, this Bala is not there. I am going into Vedanta now. I will finish very fast. In the waking state, you say, I am Bala. In dream, I see myself walking around in a park in a dream. I am Bala. In deep sleep, Bala is not there. Right? In deep sleep, this operational I that I use is not there. But I get up and I say, I slept well. Which means I existed in deep sleep. So I existed in deep sleep, but Bala was not there in deep sleep. So I am not Bala. Right? You are not Dr. Shukla, you are not Padmanabhan, you are not whom you think you are. This I that we use exists only in 2 states of consciousness, the third state is not there. But it exists through. That's what Vedanta says is that underlying substratum of waking, dream and deep sleep is the real observer. The underlying substratum of waking, dream and deep sleep is the real observer. That substratum is consciousness. Consciousness, so Amma talks about it as 10 parts. She says there's one sun, and there are 10 parts, and you think there are 10 reflections. But in reality, there are not 10 reflections. There's only one sun. One part could be golden, one part could be blue, one part could be green. So the differences are in the pot. The differences is in the liquid or whatever in the pot. Reflection per se, it's not a reflection. It's not different. So what are the differences between me and you? Differences are in the mind, differences in the body, differences in the intellect. But in substratum, can there be a difference? Consciousness filtered through this body-mind complex is called Bala. Consciousness filtered through that body-mind complex is called something else. Consciousness filtered in that something else. Consciousness per se can there be a difference? So that is what finally Ramana Maharshi says, there is, in consciousness, there is no other. Who am I? And this is Shankara's famous answer to who am I. Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham nacha stotra jihve nacha krana netra nacha vyoma bhumir na tejo na vayu chidananda rupam shivoham. I am not this body, not the mind, not the intellect, not the five senses, not the elements. I am bliss, I am consciousness, I am Siva, I am Shiva. Means I am consciousness. That is Shankara's answer to who this I is. And this is what Schrödinger says about consciousness. And this is a fantastic quote. It's long, but it's worth reading. This is what Schrödinger says. He's a father of quantum mechanics, and please see what he says. He says, my body functions as a pure mechanism according to the laws of nature. Yet I know by incontrovertible experience that I am directing its motions. The only possible inference from these two facts is that I think is that I in the widest meaning of the word. That is to say, every conscious mind that has ever said or felt I, if any, who controls the motion of atoms according to the laws of nature. Consider whether above is not the closest a biologist can get to proving God and immortality at one stroke. What he's saying is, I'm consciousness, I say I. Right here he says consciousness affecting matter. The very fact that I can move my hand at will. Right here it's evident, self-evident that will is it may need the equipment of the mind and the body. But right here will, consciousness is moving the body. I'm moving my hand, I'm doing this. That's what Schrödinger says. I'm not saying it, Erwin Schrödinger says. And he says, the earliest to my knowledge dates back to some 2000 years ago from the great early Upanishads recognition that Atman equals Brahman was in Indian thought considered the quintessence of deepest insight into the happenings of the world. This is what Schrödinger says. And Ramana Maharshi says, in consciousness there is no other. So, there is no other. There is other only in the plane of the mind. There is other only in the plane of the body. In consciousness, in that supreme observer, in the substratum behind all our minds, there is no two. It's only one. And that is what the Mahatmas say they experience. When they go beyond the mind, they say they experience pure consciousness in all beings. So there is several instances, hundreds of instances are there. Of, say, for example, or Sri Ramakrishna crying out loud when people were cutting the grass. And he said he could feel the pain. Amma once hugged a leper who was oozing pus and blood, and somebody went and asked her, how come you don't feel any disgust when you see the leper? How are you able to hug him and kiss him and treat him like that with so much love? Amma's answer was, son, I am the leper, where is the disgust? There is no I-you difference in the Mahatmas who have gone beyond the mind. Their experience is the experience of consciousness, of being the ultimate observer. Perhaps it is that consciousness, the observation of that consciousness that has collapsed all the wave functions into what we see today. Why is the world like this? Because there is a conscious observer, just collapsed all the possibilities into this one. Who is this conscious observer? Not you nor me, but the substratum behind our body, mind and intellect, the Atma, Brahman, God, whatever you call it. That is what Vedanta says. So Vedanta is the only system of thought that's able to answer what quantum mechanics says, but at the same time produce real examples of people who have lived according to that and who can demonstrate a difference. And that is what we should do research upon. These are reproducible. What Shankara said 2000 years ago, Bhagavad Gita said 5000 years ago. Arjuna asked Krishna very clearly, what are the properties of a realized soul? Siddha prajnata ka bhasha samajistasya keshava. Sita adi kim prabhashet, kim brajet, asit, kim. How does he sit? How does he stand? How does he walk? He's talking about properties. What is the properties of sulfuric acid? What is the properties of, whatever, of an electron? What is the property of a magnetic particle? What is the property of a realized soul? Krishna is talking about a state of being. He talks, the answer is about a state of being which is not affected by the dualities of the mind. And there lies a solution. Simultaneously to the problem of physics and in fact to the problem of humanity. Because when I know that I am you, can I cheat you or can I exploit you? Can I do anything that is anti-you? Ethics automatically comes into play. Automatically it falls into play. That is why the critical need is there of the hour to look at Vedanta and do research in it. To go and see what these Mahatmas have written. See if they are repeatable. And they are repeatable because they say the same thing. Whether it's Amma of today or Swami Vivekananda 100 years ago, or Ramana Maharshi 100 years ago, or Shankar of 3000 years ago. Or, Vasishtha, Yajñavakya in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. They are all saying the same thing. It's the same thing. It's reproducible. And they all say one thing, go beyond the mind. Because ultimately it's the mind that makes the difference. The problem with going beyond the mind is, every night I go beyond the mind, I switch it off. But when I switch it off, I go to sleep. There's nothing to see. So what I need to do is, I need to combine the awareness of the waking state with the absolute silence of the deep sleep state. Because I don't know whether my thoughts are creating any difference. Apparently they are. My observation is affecting the world. So if I want to see what this really is, I need to switch off my mind and look at it. But if I switch off my mind, I go to sleep. So how do you look at it? The only way is if I combine the awareness of the waking state with the absolute silence of the deep sleep state. If I consciously switch off my mind, that's meditation. That is what is meant. That is meditation. So when I consciously go beyond my mind, then, according to the Mahatmas, I experience a state of consciousness of unity, which is what physics seems to be tending to. So it's called Drishti Srishtivada, it's a self-referencing universe. In Sanatana Dharma, in our tradition, there is no creation. Actually, creation is an illusion. They say, what creation? The whole thing is a projection of the mind. It's called Drishti Srishti. We are self-referencing. We are creating this Drishti Srishtivada. And so previously people were saying Vedanta is scientific. But I am telling you, no, science is Vedantic. That is what is important. It's tending towards that. It's tending towards that. And I feel that when we look at Vedanta, when we look at the science of consciousness, we will be able to make the real bridge between science and spirituality. And once again, I end with this quote of Amma. Starts external is matter, internal is consciousness. Finally, we go to the state. When you transcend all differences, you see everything as pervaded by pure consciousness. She is talking from her experience. And I pray that we can do research on that and check it out if it is right or wrong and try to consciously go beyond our mind and understand the self. Asha. Yes, sir.
जो वेव डुअलिटी से क्वांटम फिजिक्स आई और क्वांटम फिजिक्स से पूरा टेक्नोलॉजी आया, ऐसा लोग बोलते हैं अभी वर्ल्ड में कि नाउ द फ्यूचर साइंस will be based on the philosophy of Vedanta and the concept of consciousness. And the new physics will be evolved on the philosophy of this Vedanta, in which new technologies like quantum teleportations, remote viewing, quantum computing, these are very, very important things to come in the world. Can you please give some ideas about these new extraordinary things in the world to happen? And it will be credit goes to Vedanta thoughts and philosophy.
Yeah, yes, sir, but that's beyond me. But a wonderful question. But actually, there's one plane less because I'm talking about self-realization and attaining a state of consciousness beyond the mind. You're talking about still playing about in X, Y, Z, and T. You are still in space-time and you want to go from here to Bombay simultaneously. I am telling you that both here and Bombay exist simultaneously in your mind now and is not external to you. You are already in Bombay. But that's a different story. But he has asked a very important question. Is quantum teleportation possible? Yes. Well, through the EPR paradox. Yeah, I told you the EPR paradox, right? That is, now, by the way, I am only a student of quantum mechanics and I am only a student of Vedanta. I don't presume to know all the answers. But I'm just telling you what I've studied. Oh, that's like, okay. In EPR paradox, you have one particle here and you take an entangled particle and go. Yes, it is possible, because what happens is when you make a measurement on the state of this particle, on the spin state or whatever of this particle, you simultaneously determine the state of the other particle. So it is possible, theoretically, to duplicate things across space. Theoretically, it hasn't yet been done, but yes, there is research going on, and if possible, if that is the case, then yeah, tomorrow maybe. But the problem is, at a very, actually this simple thing has been done in a subatomic level, but at a macroscopic, pragmatic level like ours, probably very, very difficult, because Planck's constant is so small. Our mass is so huge, so I don't know if it's practical, but yes, research is going on, quantum teleportation. The other thing you told me is remote sensing. Yesterday I was blown away by these kids who, because their midbrain activity was activated and they could read even though they were blindfolded. I am amazed by that. I don't know. I met a sannyasi who told me that perhaps realization is when, the two halves of the brain are, it's a function of the brain, and maybe that is possible, because I came across this neuroanatomist video of, I forgot her name, Julie somebody, I forgot her name. She had a stroke, and she's a neuroanatomist and she knows all about strokes. She herself had a stroke, and there's a TED talk given by her, it's fantastic. Please go and see it. So she had a stroke in which she was watching herself have the stroke, and the left part of her brain, there was some hemorrhage or whatever it's happening. And all of a sudden she says, when only the right part of her brain was active and the left part was completely shut down, she suddenly says she could not feel where she ends. See, we think that we end here, right? She could not feel where she ends. It seems to be a continuous flow from here to the wall, to the car, to the whole thing. At the same time, she was telling herself, you have a stroke, get to the doctor, get to the doctor. But she was so beautiful, she didn't want to go to the doctor and get herself cured. She talks about it in the TED talk. It's possible, sir. You see, it is possible that the brain is acting as a limiting device. And because of that, we are seeing the world as it is. Maybe if some neuroanatomical research is done, maybe we can experience higher states. Probably. The research should be done. But the most important thing I want to say is, we should not feel ashamed of this. We should go and tell all the physicists, go do research on consciousness, give funding to it. That is where the answers lie. We should boldly proclaim that, there is so much of truth in the Upanishads, there is so much of truth in our tradition, and we should go out and do research on that and demonstrate it. That's it. I'm sure.
Bala, it's wonderful listening to you with such a great conceptual clarity. My only concern is, how do we take these ideas to the common man and to the common, the youth, without it. So I have. So this is the problem. He says that it is not the common man's subject. So I will give you two metaphors. I would like to share two metaphors to take these ideas to the common man. The first metaphor is from my book titled as Quantum Rope, Science, Mysticism and Management, which was published in 1999. And the last chapter of that talks about a four steps model: Newtonian physics, Einsteinian physics, quantum physics, and the last one is quantum. Quantum. Now there is a very interesting resonance of quantum and the quantum. Who am I? So when I tell this to my students, they are immediately able to understand that, okay, here is another paradigm of thinking without really, using very high sounding Vedanta and all that. That is okay for all of us. But how do we communicate and inspire the students. So by doing this, then they develop an interest. Then they start exploring. And then they say, yes, now it makes sense to me that why I should be exploring some of these scriptures or some of these ideas. So we need to create some metaphors like this. Second metaphor is the Ganga flowing, or a river flowing. On one side of the river is the end of science, one end of the science. And what is that end of science? E for Einstein, N for Newton, D for Darwin. So science ends with this practically with these three great scientists. But then there is another end, the other side of the river. And what is that end? That is Einstein to eternity, Newton to nirvana, and Darwin to divinity. And that is what we are exploring. But unfortunately, the scientists sitting on this side of Ganga are unwilling to take a vow on the other side. So what do? We create a quantum bridge to facilitate the interaction. And on that quantum bridge, like the Lakshman Jhula, we are all standing there and observing. So that's the metaphor which is there in my recent article, Quantum Bridge Between Science and Spirituality. You can go to the Google and just put that title and read the full paper on that. So these are when I tell my students this metaphor, then everything starts making sense. That yes, now the time has come for this integration, because the West has been talking about what I call the Western windows. Windows are to look outside. But there are doors. You mentioned about the doors. Doors is to come inside. So the methodology of the science is looking at the outside through the windows. And methodology which was perfected, as you rightly pointed out, was completely perfected, is coming through the doors. That is why yoga, meditation, and that methodology did not develop in the West. But the Western science, because of historical reasons, looking outside through the windows, developed there. And I think for the benefit of our nation, we need to combine these two, what I call the Western windows, Eastern doors. And that was the title of my book, which was published in 1996, in the field of management, management in New Age, Western windows, Eastern doors. But even that is not sufficient. So on the horizontal line, we have the Western windows on one side, Eastern doors on the other side. But then, as he is pointing out, the two must converge. And that is what I call the consciousness corridors.
Rightly, sir.
Consciousness corridors. So if we want to create a beautiful building, we need to have the windows and the doors and the corridors. And I think that is the direction in which our thought system should evolve. Our research should go in that direction. With that submission, thank you very much for giving me this.
Thank you. Rightly, as Balakrishna Shankar ji began with examples and his idols of Vivekananda, Shankaracharya and Raman Maharshi, I think we should call them Einsteins of consciousness.
Exactly.
And we should aim at creating such Einsteins of consciousness in India itself. Why go and ask the physicists in the West?
Actually,
should that be the case, sir?
I just want to add, it is not so, I think it is important to tell it to everybody, including the common man. Swami Vivekananda says that one of the biggest mistakes we did was not to teach Advaita Vedanta to everybody. Everybody should be exposed to the truth. Truth is truth. Everybody should be told the truth. 3 months ago, one little kid came walking up to Amma and was asking about creation and all. Amma said there is no creation and that the consciousness alone is the truth. Then the kid, I don't know what the kid understood, the kid went off. There was another person, a friend of mine, who went to Amma and said, Amma, what are you saying? You're talking all this to a kid, how will she understand? Amma said, I don't know of any other truth. I can't tell lies. So this is the only I know, and so that's the truth. So we don't know. I think we should tell everybody the fundamental truth.
Well, I have no question. I want to tell people here something. There is a particle called pion, which is without spin. And pion on its own explodes into 2 photons. In fact, when he talked about EPR experiment, the first thing which was thought of a photon. Later on, I think David Bohm changed that too. So what happens is, what I want to tell you is, capability of consciousness. If suppose you have a photon here, you get a photon. It could be a photon which has come out of an explosion of a ion, because no particles, all particles are identical. You cannot distinguish between 2 particles. So what happens is, supposing this photon which you are measuring upon, it's what you call as a spin. Photon doesn't have a spin. Photon has a spin. If you suppose measure spin of this photon, and if it has a twin, if this, suppose this has come to you after say 1 million years from somewhere, so the other photon will be obviously 2 million years light away from you, isn't it? So if you make measurement here and decide to spin, which is up or down, whichever it is, the other fellow there assumes automatically opposite one. That means consciousness acts in past. You see, that means so many million years before your action today has affected a thing which is in the past. So John Wheeler says this.
Yes, that's the delayed choice.
Delayed experiment is one. And John Wheeler has said he's amazed that you can even act in the past. So this only what it tells you is that time itself is an illusion. And only reality reduces only to this, that mano buddhyankara chittanaham. The last one is very good, which was said. He says,
Chidananda Rupa.
Aham nirvikalpo nirakara rupaha.
Vibhudvancha vantri sarvendriya.
Aham nirvikalpo nirakara rupaha. Sadame, what is it next one?
Vibhud vanchit sarvendriyana.
Vibhurvyapta sarvatra sarvendriyana. Sadame samatvam namuktirna bandhaha. Chidananda rupa shivoham shivo. See, because you are beyond time. You are beyond time. You are beyond this world. And that is the only reality. That is the only reality. And what he says, one of this which I wanted to tell you, he says, this reality, Shankara says, do not describe it with any adjective. Najaikam tadanyat vitiyam kutasya. एक भी मत कहो उसको, बिकॉज दूसरा कहाँ है? नचैकम तदन्नत द्वितीयम कुतस्यात् नवा केवलत्वम नचा केवलत्वम. उसको केवल भी मत कहो, उसको अकेवल भी मत कहो. नचा शून्यम नचा शून्यम अद्वैतकत्वात् कथम सर्व वेदांत सिद्धम ब्रवीमि. व्हाट ही सेज इज, क्या है वेदांत ने जो सिद्ध किया है, मुझे I have no words to describe it. Because उसको अब शून्य भी मत कहो, अशून्य भी मत कहो, क्योंकि अशून्य कुछ होने से अशून्य का अस्तित्व, अगर मैं शून्य हूं तो कोई भी नहीं जान सकता है. So even to understand abhav, bhav is necessary. So that is why it is beyond time. No, neti more or less, because you cannot describe it in the phenomenal adjectives.
Gopalji, I think we'll stop here now. I'll request again Dr. Hari Natarajanji to present the mementos to Dr. Sushil Chandra, Dr. Rajiv Nigam and Dr. Balakrishnan Shankar.
Sir, one question.
Yes.
कहीं तो उपनिषद में जो बात कर रही थी कि एक ना होने का अनुभव, तो यहाँ पर वो गुरु कह रहा है कि अग्नि और ब्रह्मचर्य, तो वैचारिक मंथन के बाद जो हु एम आई का जो रमन महर्षि का अनुभव है, वो क्या इस वैचारिक अनुभव से निकलता है बगैर अग्नि या ब्रह्मचर्य की उपासना के या नहीं, मैं पूछना चाह रहा हूँ।
You are asking about upasana, sir. You are asking now about the methods of going beyond the mind and attaining.
Yes.
That is not what. That depends upon the path. There are a lot of documented cases for that. They are called yogas, and there are many vidyas. There are Vedantic methods of meditation. There are tantric methods. For to actually find the path that is suitable for you and to walk it, you need to find a realized master and follow his advice.
I think you can discuss it in person.
That we will.
Yeah. Please.
Thank you.
Dr. Rajiv Nigam.
कॉन्टैक्ट्स ट्रांसफर कर दिए थे कल, फिर मैंने उसका सॉफ्टवेयर अपडेट किया, अभी भी फ़ोन में वो कॉन्टैक्ट्स नहीं है, और मैंने उसमें ये डाल रखा था कि जो मेरे कॉन्टैक्ट में सिर्फ उन्हीं के लिए डीपी रिप्लेस करना है।
Dr. Balakrishnan Shankar. Dr. Sushil Chandra. We are again in for another folk dance performance, which is titled Madhya Pradesh ke Lok Nritya. I think we'll take about 10-15 minutes to adjust the stage, and then we'll be back